Rhode Island. We are looking forward to a great conversation about Unit 6 issues. Again, my name is Tom Vance. I'm from Kansas State University.
I'm Tom Tinder, an attorney from Charleston, West Virginia.
I'm Steve Franzik, retired professor of political science from the U.S. Naval Academy.
And who are all of you great people from Rhode Island?
I'm Will Sullivan.
I'm Joshua Hanlon.
I'm Jason Zipshock.
I'm Kara Farmer. We're all freshmen. Our teacher is Natalie O'Brien.
Fantastic. Well, we're here today to talk about some Unit 6 issues, my favorite unit in the We the People book. And here is your question. In 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Never in the history of this nation have so many people been arrested for the cause of freedom and human dignity." What lessons can be learned from the Children's March in Birmingham, Alabama? What is civic engagement and what is its significance in American history? What responsibility, if any, do schools have to promote civic engagement? You may begin whenever you're comfortable.
The Children's March in Birmingham, Alabama has taught the United States many important lessons. Most importantly, it has taught us that to achieve justice for ourselves and each other, people must use the rights that they have, even when faced with very difficult circumstances, to accomplish it. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," which explains how important it is to push for equality and justice, regardless if you're experiencing it individually or not. In the Children's March, hundreds of kids came together to form peaceful protests for their civil rights, using their right to free speech, even though it was diminished.
The goal of the Children's March was to use nonviolence as a method to receive justice by drawing attention from Birmingham's civic and business leaders who would hopefully desegregate the community. However, a white commissioner, Bull Connor, directed local police and fire departments to use force to violently end the march. Local authorities used fire hoses, clubs, and dogs to attack people. Many adults and even children were arrested and severely harmed by this event. Bull Connor used illegal actions to take away these protesters' rights as American citizens, which made all those people fight even harder in their fight for equality. But despite these obstacles, the protesters persist in their fight. This event teaches us that even in the face of endless injustice, that in order to achieve justice, American citizens must courageously resist and exercise the rights they have to achieve it.
Civic engagement is the act of an individual or group addressing public concerns in an effort to make a difference in the community. It is also often an example of self-interest rightly understood, which is when personal gain aligns with communal gain. According to youth.gov, civic engagement means promoting the quality of life in a community through both political and non-political processes. Examples of this include a community of projects, political activism, education groups, advocacy groups, and the government organizations. Things like this improve the lives of the individuals participating as well as the community as a whole. It can give people a sense of empowerment when they join with others to be involved in civil society, politics, and democracy.
Government of the people, by the people, and for the people, the significance of civic engagement cannot be overstated. The Declaration of Independence stresses the importance of government based on the consent of the governed, making civic engagement the very foundation of representative democracy. Without it, our democracy would not function properly and popular sovereignty would not be possible. The entirety of the civil rights movement is a prime example of this. Take Martin Luther King Jr.'s example of, quote, the James Merediths, end quote. In his letter from a
We lost William's audio.
power that civic engagement can have in creating significant change in America.
Civic engagement is one of the many key components of our country. In recent decades, however, increasing numbers of Americans have disengaged from civic and political institutions, including the following: voluntary, religious, and community associations, in political and electoral activities, such as voting and staying informed on public issues. For example, in bowling alone, Robert Putnam stated that the likelihood of working in a political party had dropped by 56% in the past 20 years. Young people reflect trends like this. They're less likely to vote and are typically less interested in politics than their older counterparts. They're less likely to vote and are typically less interested when the past decades are. As a result, many young Americans may not be prepared to participate fully in a democracy when they become adults. Because of this, it is our school's job to help promote civic engagement. Schools should provide a civics class in order to allow students to form and share their political thoughts and ideas. It is essential that students have a safe space to learn the importance of our government's fundamentals and how to participate and influence them. Whether it is the debate club or We the People program, as long as kids get to talk about politics, it's a positive thing. Therefore, it is important to teach young people the necessary skills to actually create change.
Thank you.
Yes, Timer, could I ask you to stop the clock? I really want to hear what we missed from William. William, I think you were you cut out on us, and we didn't get your part in there. And I think you were talking about civil disobedience or the letter from the Birmingham jail, and which is kind of an important part of all this. And so this will be untimed right now, Timer. And we'll hear from William.
To read the entire paragraph again, or?
Sure.
Government of the people, by the people, and for the people, the significance of civic engagement cannot be overstated. The Declaration of Independence stresses the importance of government based on the consent of the governed, making civic engagement the very foundation of representative democracy. Without it, our democracy would not function properly, and popular sovereignty would not be possible. The entirety of the civil rights movement is a prime example of this. Take Martin Luther King Jr.'s example of, quote, the James Meredith, end quote. In his letter from a Birmingham jail, he said that the true heroes are common citizens who stand up against oppression, just as James Meredith did. Environmental activists have also created change in America. Environmentalism has influenced the passing of legislation to protect things like air and water quality, land use, and endangered species. These examples show the power that civic engagement can have in creating significant change in America.
William, thank you very much. I really appreciate your excellent opening statement. We do have a few questions. Timer, you may resume timing.
Thank you.
Okay. In what ways does the Constitution support and perhaps thwart civic engagement?
Our government is based upon popular sovereignty and allowing people to vote in our Constitution. In addition to that, we have the First Amendment, which allows people to speak their thoughts and to really say what they want the government to do, what they want change they want to see. And this allows the people themselves to control the government.
I want to add that in the First Amendment, the right to assembly is stated, which is very important in civic engagement, as if just a couple people get together, the government is not likely to listen to them. But if a lot of people share the same ideas and try to get the government to listen, that's more likely to work.
Are there any limits on engagement or participation in our government?
We can see some limitations when it affects the natural rights of others. We can see this in school, people have the right of education. And if you're disrupting the class fully, sometimes you'll be kicked out and because you're distracting the others. This causes some change of, you cannot say all your thoughts because it's going in the rights of others.
One of the limits are that it must be nonviolent. Although civil disobedience is different than civic engagement, if they're breaking the law and not causing any harm, that's still considered civic engagement, and that's allowed.
Let's follow up on civil disobedience a little bit. Is civil disobedience always a justified form of civic engagement, or are there times when it is and times when maybe it's not?
As long as it's non-violent, I think it should be allowed.
It depends on the perspective it's coming from. Some may think, for example, Antifa, they may think their civil disobedience is not justified and it's not truly necessary because they are very violent and people can think this is not good, this is not necessary. Others may think it is necessary, so it's a lot of perspective of what's necessary.
I agree. I think it's very subjective. If someone agrees with what they're doing, they're likely to think it's good, but if they don't, they're likely to think it's bad. I want to point out Homer Plessy's act of civil disobedience, as some people might have thought that what he did was necessary, and some people might have thought that he shouldn't have done it, and there's no point to it.
You talked about voting. Should we have compulsory, mandatory voting in the United States like other countries do? Why? Or Why not?
I do not think we should have mandatory voting, primarily because the beautiful thing about our country is we can choose what we want to participate in. This is something that we should be able to control ourselves. And if you feel that not a delegate would help you at all, it is important that you have the choice to choose someone or a choice to not choose someone.
If we force everyone to vote, then people might not care and they'll just vote for whoever has a better social media presence or whoever's more charismatic, and that is not going to be good for the country.
In the last couple of weeks, there have been demonstrations against the quarantine because of COVID-19. Do you think we're going to look back at those as being a good example of civic engagement?
I think it is important to know that it is good that people are doing that. Not necessarily a smart decision, but it's good that people know when their rights are being violated, and it is important to recognize that people do care. However, these exact examples may not be the best. It may seem in the future to be unwise. However, it is important to know that our citizens care about their rights.
If civic engagement and civic education are so important, would you support or oppose lowering the voting age to 16 in local elections?
I would oppose, primarily because even though it is important to have a say in the government, it is also important you're educated on the topic. At 16, not everyone is educated enough to make a vote that affects our whole country, our whole nation, and our future of our nation. So it is important to have the age in mind.
What is the distinction between civic engagement and just belonging to a group regardless of its purpose?
Civic engagement is very different because it's not just being part of the government. It's about participating, educating yourself, and informing others about what it is. You can join an association group, for example, and still not be civic engaged if you do not know about that civic association group.
It is important to consider what you're actually doing in that group. You could be in a group, an association group, and just be there, but if you're actually doing something and trying to create change, that would be civic engagement.
Fantastic. Good work, Rhode Island. We have some feedback. I thought you did a great job in your prepared remarks of answering the questions specifically, supporting those answers with historical or contemporary examples and solid reasoning. And then in the follow-up question period, you were able to formulate your own ideas and put forth your own arguments, taking a position or a stand on various topics. In terms of justifications for civil disobedience, Martin Luther King's letter from the Birmingham jail is perhaps our best document in our US experience. And in it, he says, not just any law or government action should be subjected to civil disobedience, but only those actions of government that don't square with higher law or moral law should be subjected to civil disobedience. And then number two, only after we've had an opportunity to work within the system to legally change an unjust law. So, but overall, I thought you did a great job of marshaling evidence and taking clear stances, and I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Steve?
Oh, yes, I thought you did a good job. I thought the historical background was effective. I thought you brought in some things that we hadn't heard before. You brought in the self-interest, rightly understood idea of civic engagement. So So I thought you did a very good job.
You made the comment that you didn't think that 16-year-olds should vote. And I think you all said you were freshmen, which means you're probably around that age. I really think you ought to be voting and participating because of your knowledge and understanding. I thought you did a very good job. I just echo all the comments that my colleagues made. And specifically, congratulations to you. You all are to be highly commended for participating and doing such a good job in this presentation, as well as your teachers. Good luck to you.